Today's spoiler video is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Use the link below to pre-order your cards today. Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another daily dose of Commander 2018 spoilers. And today's kind of a weird day. It's actually been one of the lighter days of spoilers so far, although probably more will come out after this video. You never know with this spoiler season. But we have some sweet stuff from the Esper deck to talk about, along with some leftovers from yesterday, which means even though we haven't got a ton of new stuff from the Esper deck, we still have a lot of cards to talk about. So that means we should probably jump right into it. Oh yeah, a super quick reminder, all the Commander 2018 cards coming out August 10th, I believe the 4 decks are not legal in Standard or Modern, only legal in Commander, Casual Play of course, Vintage, Legacy. So our focus today will primarily be on the Commander format, although you never know, we might talk a little bit about Legacy or Vintage as well. So anyway, let's jump right into it, starting with a new legend and the card that I think people have been most hyped about today, and for good reason. Yukiro, the Tiger's Shadow, and this card is super sweet. So 3 mana, you get a 1/3. The big deal here is it is a human ninja. So this is finally the long-awaited blue-black ninja commander, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. The other sweet thing about this card is it has Commander Ninjutsu. So if you're not familiar with Ninjutsu, it was this mechanic from Kamigawa, where if you attack and have a creature go unblocked, you can put your ninjutsu creature into play for its ninjutsu cost, which is 2 mana from your hand, bounce the creature that was unblocked back to your hand. Well, Commander Ninjutsu is the same thing, except it works from the command zone as well, and then whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, you reveal a top card of your library, you put it into your hand, and each opponent loses life equal to its converted mana cost. So Yukiro is essentially kind of like a Derevi. This is one of the big comparisons that has been coming out as far as Commander is concerned, because like you can keep putting Derevi into play from your command zone for 4 mana, completely avoiding the commander attacks, you can do the same thing with Yukiro, except it's only 2 mana with the ninjutsu cost. Yes, you do have to get in with an unblocked creature, but you're playing ninjas, you can play some unblockable things, it shouldn't be that hard to make it work, and then you're drawing a card when you hit with Yukiro, even if you don't have any other ninjas. This is also kind of a new twist on Ninja the Depowers. The actual mechanics of the card is very similar, like the ninjutsu cost is 2, yes you need black mana thrown in, but you get a creature that draws you a card when it hits, but Yukiro's even better because you're causing your opponents to lose life along the way. So the most exciting part of this for Commander is we have not had a blue-black ninja commander. If you go back to Kamigawa, ninjas were in blue and black, and while we have Higure, the blue legend, and Inkai's the black legend, we did not have a legend that encompassed both colors of the ninja tribe. So Yukiro is by default the new ninja commander, and I expect if you're building a ninja deck, you just play this as your commander 100% of the time, because not only is it the right colors, it's also pretty busted. The only downside of Yukiro, as far as ninjas are concerned, is we don't have that many ninjas in Magic. I think there's like 10 or 12, like not a very high number, so it's going to be hard to build full-out tribal. Like you can build Yukiro, you can put all the ninjas in your deck, and they are pretty good, like Ninja of Depowers drawing a card, Silent Blade and Obi can do some sweet things, Throat Slitter for removal, along with like Inkai's and Higure that we were talking about. So you can build ninjas, but you're going to need to expand past just the ninja tribe. The good news is Yukiro isn't really restricted to ninjas. While I think she will be the commander for ninja decks, you can't just use her for value. Like, she is a ninja herself, so you're still drawing a card when she gets in for damage, and then you could be picking up Brave Titans, Ravenous Chupacabras, maybe you got a Panharmonicon out to reuse the Enter the Battlefield triggers. So I think Yukiro is super insane. The ability to always cheat her into play for 2 mana makes her extremely powerful in Commander, because if your opponent kills it, it's just coming back again and again and again for 2 mana, and the ability to draw cards is solid. It can even finish off the game with direct damage, so I expect that this will be one of the single most popular commanders from Commander 2018, and it is just a really solid card all around. Next up, we have Aminatou the Fate Shifter. We kind of mentioned Aminatou on day 1. It is the Esper Planeswalker legend, can be legal as your commander, and this card is interesting. So for 3 mana, you get 3 loyalty, your +1 you get to kind of like do a weird loot. You draw a card, but then you have to put a card from your hand back on top of your library. -1, you exile another permanent you own, then return to the battlefield under your control. So kind of like a flickery reuse and enter the battlefield trigger type thing. And then -6, you basically just shift everyone's permanents one to the left or right. So the person sitting next to you is going to get all your permanents. You're going to get the permanents from the person on the other side of you, shift it around the table, see what happens. So Aminatou does not strike me as a very powerful card. I think she might have very niche purposes. If you are playing a Miracle style deck, being able to put a Terminus back on your deck, Entreat the Angels, the new card, Entreat the Dead, the black Entreat the Angels that we'll talk about more in the future. But I think that's basically where Aminatou works, is as this kind of Miracle-y commander. Otherwise, it's not a very powerful card. Like, flickering is nice, reusing an enter the battlefield trigger, but overall, I think this is one of the least powerful commanders from the cycle, unless we get a lot more top of the deck synergies. And we do have some that already exist in Magic, like being able to put a card back on top of your deck. You can kind of set up a Mind's Dilation or a Polymorph or a Djinn of Wishes or something. So you can go that style and play top of your library matters. The good news is we still haven't seen that many cards from the Esper deck, and top of your deck matters is the theme of the deck. So hopefully we get some more good support cards to actually make Aminatou a playable card, because unless we get a decent amount of support in the deck, I'm having a hard time figuring out, outside of Miracles and just a random value-y card that isn't even that much value, I'm having a hard time figuring out where exactly she fits in the Commander format. So next up, we have a couple more legends to talk about that snuck in later yesterday. We have Vasa the Sunlit, which is basically the ultimate Boggle commander. So bad colors, you get a 1/1, but it gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control, and then it's kind of an enchantress as well, where whenever you cast your first enchantment of the turn, you get to draw a card. So you can't just go nuts and like combo off and cast a million enchantments and draw a million cards, but you do get to draw an extra card. So this is basically a hybrid that is half Yavimaya Enchantress, half Viduran Enchantress. You get like the card draw ability to some extent of Viduran, the bigness of Yavimaya Enchantress, and I think that this will be a pretty popular commander if your goal is just to play maybe some hexproof creatures, throw some auras on them. You can even go full-on Voltron with Tusova because it's getting bigger for the auras you're putting on it, kind of like a legendary core spirit dancer. So I feel like where this fits is the, like, I'm playing all the enchantresses, the Femerith, the Agorthan Enchantress, the Mason Enchantress, every enchantress you can, playing as many auras as you can, drawing as many cards as you can, and then maybe just like making Tusova unblockable or giving it trample and smashing your opponent Voltron style with one super big attack. We also got Verena Lich Queen, and Verena's kind of interesting. So Verena is 4 mana, you get a 4/4, it's a legendary zombie wizard, and whenever you attack with 1 or more zombies, you draw that many cards and discard that many cards. You also gain that much life. So if you attack with 3 zombies, you draw 3, discard 3, gain 3, and then you can pay 2, exile 2 cards from your graveyard to make a 2/2 black zombie, and then you have that zombie that is able to attack the next turn because it does enter tapped, and then draw more cards, do more looting, gain more life. So the big thing about Verena is, if you look at the history of zombies in Magic, they were basically mono-black for a long time. Then we went to Innistrad and had a lot of blue-black zombies, and then we went to Amonkhet and got white-black zombies. The problem is, while we had mono-black legends, blue-black legends, we didn't have a legend that would encompass all the colors of zombies. So Verena gives us a legend that lets you play your sweet Amonkhet zombies with your Innistrad zombies, with the old-school mono-black zombies. So if you want to play a zombie deck that is taking advantage of all the different colors, I think Verena is the default commander for that deck, and it's a fine card. I mean, it's not an insanely powerful commander, but the mass card draw looting is very solid. Zombies like stocking their graveyard anyway, because you have grave crawlers and other zombies that take advantage of the graveyard. So I feel like it's a pretty good example of what Esper Zombies wants to be doing, and while it doesn't jump off the page like, oh my god, like the new Ninja Commander, commander, which is just like, that is so busted, it still seems like a pretty reasonable commander for an Esper zombie deck. Next up, we have Myth Unbound, and Myth Unbound is a card that is very unique. So 3 mana enchantment. It makes it so your commander costs 1 less to cast for each time that it has been cast from the command zone this game. So let's say your commander dies, you go to recast it, instead of a commander tax of 2, you have a commander tax of 1. But let's say your commander died 5 times, so the commander tax would be 10 extra mana. It's going to be cut down to 5 mana instead. So it does give you an increasing discount the more times your commander goes to the command zone and you cast it. You also get to draw a card whenever your commander is put to the command zone from anywhere. So Myth Unbound, I think this card is actually not very good. I do see that there's combo potential. Something like Prosh with Food Chain, you just go infinite and draw your entire deck, and it's super insane and make tons of mana, and it's very, very good if you build a combo around it. The problem is, when you look at Myth Unbound, maybe it's going to draw you 2, 3, 4 cards if things go badly and you're recasting your commander again and again and again, which is fine. That's not horrible, and that's assuming you get it down before you start having your commander die. Then the discount, though, is just kind of like ramp, but it's only ramps for your commander. So unless you're comboing off or have a commander that is really dying constantly, I think you're better off just playing another Cultivator, a Kadama's Reach, cards that add mana for any of your cards, because your deck isn't just casting your commander. Like, you're casting tons of things. Yes, your commander is part of it, but why would you play a card that was add 1 to 5 mana, let's say, depending on the scenario, only for your commander, when you can play cards that are adding 3 mana, like Gilded Lotus, for any card you want? So I feel like it's a bad ramp spell, unless you're specifically comboing with it, or if you have a commander that's really cheap and gonna die all the time and can draw you a ton of cards. But just the cutting down on the commander tax, outside of combos, I don't think it's very exciting. Just play another normal ramp spell that ramps for all your cards, not just your commander. Next up, we got Ever Watching Threshold, which is kind of a unique enchantment. So 3 mana, when an opponent attacks you or a planeswalker you control with 1 or more creatures, you get to draw a card. So this is kind of like a new take on a Propaganda or a Ghostly Prison, same mana cost even, basically discouraging people from attacking you. If a Tomer wants to swing all of his creatures at me, he's got to let me draw a card for the ability to do that, which is a reason not to attack me. I don't know how much of a reason it is. I don't think it's the same amount of a reason as I have to pay 10 mana to attack you with 5 creatures to your Propaganda or Ghostly Prison. But still, if you're on the fence and like, who should I attack? You're gonna not attack the person that gets to draw a card. However, it is important to point out this is not a Binding of Thassa or a Coastal Piracy type trigger. No matter how many creatures your opponent attacks you with, you're only drawing 1 card, which does kind of limit the power of Ever Watching Threshold. If it triggered for each creature, it would definitely be a major deterrent for people to attack you, but only triggering once means if your opponent has 10 creatures, they're like, sure, whatever, like, yeah, you draw a card, you're just going to be dead though, because I just hit you with my 10 creatures. So I think it's fine, and it's a nice deterrent in addition to Propaganda and Ghostly Prison, and powers up your enchantment synergies. But I imagine it's not like Ghostly Prison, where it's like, all right, my opponent literally can't kill me because I have this. It's more like, well, if I'm indecisive and I don't know exactly who I want to attack, it might be the thing that tips the scales a little bit in your favor of your opponent not attacking you, but it's definitely not just, you can't attack me, I stacked you out of the game with Ghostly Prison or Propaganda. Next up, we got Ravenous Slime, which is a fine card. 3 mana, you get a 1/1. It can't be blocked with creatures powered 2 or less, so not getting blocked, chump blocked by little creatures. And then whenever a creature an opponent controls would die, instead it gets exiled, and you put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the creature's power on Ravenous Slime. So this card is pretty powerful because Graveyard Hate is very important in Commander, and the ability to just for free exile all of your opponent's creatures as they are going into the graveyard, while also growing your Ravenous Slime into a really big threat, has a lot of potential. I think that's how you play the card. Since it's only a 1/1 for 3, maybe opponents won't focus too much on killing it, thinking, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And then as things die, suddenly it's a 4/4, then it's a 7/7, then it's a 15/15, and you have a really huge huge threat for no additional mana. So I actually kind of like this card. There might even be some weird chance that this shows up in older formats. There's so many good graveyard hate spells. I think this would definitely have a shot as a sideboard card in Modern. I don't know if it could find its way into Legacy or whatever, although it is worth pointing out you can Green Sun Zenith for it, a Collected Company for it, whatever you're doing to find your creatures. So definitely a powerful card, even if it doesn't jump off the page like, oh my god, because it's just a 1/1 for 3. But hating on the graveyards for no additional mana and becoming a big threat eventually, pretty sweet. Next up, we got the black mana of the Commander Storm cycle, Skull Storm. So 9 mana, which is roughly infinite. However, you do get to copy it for each time you cast your commander from the command zone this game. Each opponent has to sack a creature, and each opponent who can't loses half of their life rounded up. So this card is kind of like Exsanguinate with a Mass Cruel Edict effect, and I think what you mostly want to do with this is try to sweep the board and then just kill your opponents. If you can make sure your opponent's not sacking creatures, then all of a sudden Skullstorm is going to cause people to lose absurd amount of life. Someone's at 40, then they go to 20, then they go to 10, then they go to 5, then they go to 2, then they go to 1, then they go to dead. So it's possible you could just straight up kill someone from 40 life with no creatures if you can have enough copies of Skullstorm. And because you're playing in black, you get sacrifice outlets, so maybe you sacrifice a cheap commander over and over again, cast the Damnation, use your Cabal coffers to Skullstorm, and just wipe someone out of the game in one shot. That said, 9 mana is a ton, so it's a difficult card to build around, and when you're getting up to 9 mana, you could be casting Rise of the Dark Realms and just all kinds of really crazy things. So we'll see if it can compete even through its mana cost, but the upside in the right scenario, like cast your Decree of Pain, sweep the board, untap Skullstorm, kill everyone by the mass drainage, definitely could do some really sweet things in the right deck. Next up, we got Entreat the Dead, which we mentioned really briefly in our Miracles discussion, but this card is super sweet. So you got to pay 3 and double X to return X target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, which is not very good. 3 and double X means 5 mana you reanimate 1 creature, 7 mana 2 creatures, 9 mana 3 creatures. However, it has a miracle card of black X, which is absolutely insane. That means for 5 mana, if you miracle it, you're getting back 3 creatures, and if you have 10 mana, you're just getting back like your entire graveyard. 8 creatures, so many creatures. It does limit itself to only your graveyard. The thing I mostly like about this card, it is literally the black version of Entreat the Angels. It is the same mana cost, the same miracle, just flipped around to take advantage of the graveyard to reanimate a bunch of stuff. So I feel like this is a pretty solid reanimation spell, especially if you can set up the top of your deck to reanimate it. The only downside is, if you are miracling it, unless you have ways to draw during your opponent's turn, which is definitely something you could set up with an opt or something, but you're miracling it on your draw phase, which means you're getting a bunch of creatures, spending all your mana, then you're letting your opponents untap and wrath the board or whatever, but you can solve this problem if you can get Dragonlord Kolaghan, or maybe a huge Craterhoof Behemoth, or Garna in your graveyard, and then when you reanimate, you're not just getting these creatures that are going to die, but you're getting some value right away, like Craterhoof trampling in for a ton of damage, or you're getting your entire team to have haste with Kolaghan or Garna. So I think that that's one cool way to build around it, is include some reanimation targets that give your stuff haste to minimize the drawback of probably miracling it on your draw step. And you really want to focus on miracling it. If you are casting it fairly, it is a very bad reanimation card. Way worse than the other options in the format. It just scales very slowly and poorly. But if you could set it up to miracle it, it is one of the most powerful reanimation spells. We also got Isolated Watchtower, which is a pretty interesting colorless land. So enters untap, adds a colorless, then you can pay 2, scry 1, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a basic land that's revealed, you get to put it on the battlefield tapped. However, you can only activate this ability if an opponent controls at least 2 more lands than you. So this card is kind of like a scrying sheet. You pay some mana, maybe get some card advantage, although Isolated Watchtower does have the advantage of being able to actually ramp you, where the card's going directly onto the battlefield. The downside is, I don't know how many times you'll be able to activate this. Like, if you get too many lands, you're going to have to stop using Isolated Watchtower. So I think that this is mostly at home in decks that are maybe like mono blue, mono red. They are using artifacts to ramp, so they're not ramping lands with cultivates and aura promises and stuff like that. And then you hope that one of your opponents is playing a land-based ramp deck where they are cultivating and aura promising, and then you're playing your mana rocks and you're using Isolated Chapel as a way to dig through your deck, get more lands on the battlefield to keep up with your opponent. Plus, even if you whiff on a land, paying 2 to scry 1, at least it's something. Like, it's not the worst. Putting a bad card to the bottom and to find more action is a nice upside, and you can always choose to remain behind on lands to keep repeatedly using the scry ability. So, in specific decks, which are basic, heavy, mono-colored decks, I think Isolated Watchtower can be pretty good. However, there's a ton of competition for colorless lands, so I guess we'll have to see how it shakes out. We also got the green Commander Storm card in Genesis Storm. So you copy it for each time you've cast your commander, then you reveal cards for the top of your library until you get a non-land permanent. You put the revealed card onto the battlefield, the rest go to the bottom. So this card can be pretty powerful. Obviously, you want to power it up. If you're just casting it for 1, you might as well cast, I don't know, a random trap or some of the other cards that can do something similar. But if you could cast this with a bunch of copies, you could get a ton of value for 6 mana. So we've talked about this with other things, I guess food chain combos with anything, but I imagine like food chaining Galtas and making tons of manas and repeatedly casting your Galta, and then Genesis Storming to get like 10 permanents or something like that could be pretty powerful. So definitely a unique card that can do some crazy things with the right combo, but try to make sure you're at least getting 2 copies, maybe 3 copies, or else it's not as good as the other options available if you're just copying it once. That said, you can kind of break it a little bit by manipulating the top of your library, using Scroll Rack to put your best permanent on top of your deck, or even Sensei's Divining Top to try to make sure you're not hitting a random mana rock, and instead you're hitting a big expensive creature. So I think Genesis Storm is sweet. The best case scenario is it's insane with combos if you can keep recasting your commander and then get like 10 copies of it. But even if you can just get 2 or 3 copies, not a bad deal for 6 mana. Wrapping things up today, we got a few reprints from the enchantment deck primarily. Sigil of the Empty Throne can make a lot of angels. Winds of Wrath, a good wrath if you're enchanting your stuff. Herald makes your stuff cheaper. Bruna, a nice backup commander. Then we got Portent, which is basically the worst ponder ever. You can choose a player, look at the top 3 cards of their library, reorder them, and then on the next upkeep you get to draw a card. So kind of a weird watered down version of Ponder, although it can be good in Legacy Miracles if you want to trigger a miracle on your opponent's turn, or in Commander as well, I guess. And then the rest of the Loyal cycle with Loyal Unicorn, and those have been our daily Commander 2018 spoilers for today. So let me know what you think. How busted is Yukiro? Is that card just Derevi broken? Is it going to be one of the most popular commanders from the set? How about Aminatou, the Fate Shifter? Is that card better than I think it is? How about all the other stuff? Tisova? Is that the best enchantment slash Boggle commander we have? Verena, are you going to play some Esper zombies now? Is Myth Unbound worth it, even though it only deals with your planeswalkers, outside of combos, of course? How about Everwatching Threshold? Is that enough of a deterrent for people attacking you? Ravenous Slime, Skull Storm, and the green Commander Storm card, Isolated Watchtower, Entreat the Dead. How many creatures can you reanimate? The reprints. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.